The horrific events surrounding the Chernobyl accident were covered up. Effing university students? What is said on the sign at the fence? Not allowed to enter. What is being said by this? He gestured at the writing smeared all over the front entrance. Effing no admittance. Do you really believe that we posted them just because, like you, we had nothing better to do? There's nothing else for it except to pry into areas that are not your business. His sigh was audible. Observe what transpired and what you did now. What did you get from your brilliant idea? When I finished telling Morose what had occurred, she raged at me. His first action upon arrival was to confirm that the service tow was closed. He just raced there to make sure it was secured and sealed without even saying hello to me. He was probably in his mid-50s and had an ordinary appearance, but I believe that many thought he was older than he really was. What is this location? I inquired. You don't know, he said. Got up and headed for his vehicle. How do you do this? I will save your pal, and you're accompanying me. All you have to do is follow my instructions to the letter. Keep silent. Don't push yourself too much. You will suffocate from oxygen exhaustion due to the lack of circulation in the air. This line will keep you bound to me. With what seemed to be a little retractable winch, he hoisted it. You'll react instantly and stay still when I turn off my light. Then he went ahead and opened the trunk of the vehicle to reveal a shotgun. Do they have the potential to be helpful? I inquired. A certain degree. He gave me a handgun and added, but don't use it unless I tell you to. Final point, what does ozone smell like? When he asked, I gave a nod. Well done. Run away if you smell Hanson. When he bolted the door and used a huge padlock to secure it from the inside. I began to question whether this was a wise idea. When he saw I was seeing him, he replied, this is the only way we can keep them from leaving. This was a terrible idea. Of course, it was the worst I've ever had, to put it another way. I was wondering whether I would ever see that padlock open again. Will there be no key for me? As I saw him shut it with a loud click, I questioned. I'm sorry, I just won. Sliding his fingers over the wire that joined us, he added, but don't worry, I'm right here. We moved down the service tunnel, the tether reeling back and forth between us. My feeling of security increased because I knew I wouldn't get lost or split off from the only other person in the area. With the diesel fuel that sloshed about in the big canisters we carried, it produced a kind of odd beat. The generator room, located across the main entrance hall, would be our first destination. The generator buzzed and shook as it gradually began to spin up. Were you able to witness it? Asking Morose what? Before it turns on, we have a little time to converse. When your buddy was taken, did you see what happened? No. In response, I said, what is this location? Once again, I inquired. It was once a military stockpile in the 1950s, he said, sighing as he peered up into space. Later on, in the late 1970s, it was converted into a research facility. They've done it here, and sometimes it was some messed up stuff that was too insane for the general public to know about. Then they had this teleportation project, for which they even renovated half of the building, and that's when everything turned bad. How are you aware of all of this? I inquired. It's where I used to work, he added. So, what exactly are these items? I inquired. Yes, they are. He got started, then waved it off. I am not sure. I served as just an assistant. Does anybody know the answer? Not anymore. It's safe to assume that everyone who knew never left this location. Moreover, how did you escape? With a last click, the engine clutch engaged and the generator fired up. Not me, however, when that occurred. I, took a sick day. A circuit breaker popped, causing the lights to briefly come on before turning out again. That's okay. The electricity for the lights cannot be spared. Somewhere else will need it, you'll see, said Morose. He wasn't here for whatever had occurred. Whatever had killed all the folks down here, and heaven knows how it was all related to the Chernobyl accident. He took the day off due to illness. Please, child, let's go. We were at the lab security checkpoint, which Alex and I had closed before making our getaway. Morance advised me to remember to be as quiet as possible, and together we carefully opened the blast door. We were shocked when the brightness suddenly blinded us. Something was blazing directly at us. I stepped back to give my eyes time to acclimate to the brightness before I could finally make out where the light was coming from. The torch of Alexei. As soon as Morant stopped me with his arm and gestured into the darkness of the passage ahead of us, I proceeded to pick it up. We stood there in silence for a little while, and then I thought I heard something. Without further ado, Morant switched off his light and motioned for me to follow suit. Ducking into a corner, we were both still lighted when I followed suit and turned off my light. The room was lit by Alex's light, which remained on. After silently cursing and hurriedly grabbing the torch, Morant's disappeared into darkness, utterly shadowy and black. It's been said that when one sense is diminished by stress, the other sense becomes more acute in order to make up for it. It's accurate. Maybe it was simply becoming nearer. It is irrelevant. With a muffled splash, I heard something tumble to the ground. Then came some erratic footfalls, unlike the sounds of a person wearing shoes while walking. It resembled a person strolling in sandals. Cadavers on cement. They were also drawing nearer, grasping the rifle Moreau's handed me out of impulse. I hoped I wouldn't have to use it. I could hear its ragged, sluggish breathing now that it was so near. Perhaps even a cool air touched my face. Take a breath, then release it, both inside and without. It's not something I want to consider how close it was then, with a bang and the sound of shattering glass and plastic. Something smashed into a wall along the path we had come. Whatever was with us spun around and swiftly pursued it. I assumed that it was gone and that I was secure. A hand swept over me out of the blue. The hand moved fast and seized my lips, stopping me from making any sound. As I was about to spring and scream, my gun was seized by another hand. That's me. Adhere to me. A voice spoke softly in my ear. We went into a side room, and I heard a door shut without a sound after a little bit of waiting. We switched on our lights again. Go duck. Never again should you do it, I conveyed to him, but he did not hear. On the floor across the room, he was seeing drips of a viscous, dark liquid. What? That is what? I inquired. Syrup it was at least once, Morant replied, then pursued the trail. Tracing it through many rooms, we came to a halt at a spacious laboratory for chemicals, and a pool of dark liquid on the ground. There was something. It belonged to Alex. Plus, there was some crimson liquid, without a doubt. I could identify what it was. New life blood. The dark liquid trailed off in the other direction in a few drips. Examine, I murmured that he must have escaped. That seems unlikely to me. We need to get to level -4 if we want to locate him. He gave the knife a quick look before pretending he saw nothing. Examine. It's his knife. He must have been injured since they must have battled here, because he moved in that direction. When I showed him where the blood trail led, we should avoid wasting time for that additional purpose. Now let's move. He turned and walked back down the main hallway. The tie that bound us made it impossible for me to remain and look for Alex. So I did as I was told and followed. At first, tell me what's happening. Moreau's, please. How can you be sure he's not present? Because I am aware of it. Please stop talking. We have no time to quarrel. No longer were we whispering. I insisted that until you told me why you were so convinced. I wasn't going anywhere, because he is no longer among us. What? But you did say, let's go. Come on, we want to leave this area immediately. We need to descend to the level -4. I was interrupted by Moreau's. Nope, at first I trusted him because he was the only one who could assist both Alex and myself. Saving Alex was the only thing on which I concentrated. It wasn't until now that I realized what I had gotten myself into and how foolish and blind I was. Neither of us was come to help Alex. Nor was he only an aide, as he had stated. I began to unfasten my end of the rope. Why are you acting so strangely? He questioned. Becoming more animated. I'm heading out, I insisted. Give me the padlock key. Nope. His voice was agitated as he responded. I can't do that. There was nothing for me to choose. I shot him with my pistol up again. I said, give me the key. Do you believe I could provide you a functional gun? He leveled his shotgun at me and yelled, you're not going anywhere. There was only a click when I pushed the trigger. Go duck. What brings us here? You have me at gunpoint. Why didn't you contact your pals' bosses or someone else to handle this? Let's imagine that our objectives no longer align. Without a doubt, however, they are coming, just not with firearms. Using concrete, this site is going to be permanently sealed off, and in order to leave by the time that occurs, we must move quickly. Could you simply kindly let me go right now? My voice faltering, I inquired. He looked me in the eyes and stated, "Because it's a two-man job. Compared to you, me, and your buddy, there are many more significant things that was impossible for me to dispute. I couldn't do this." But maybe he was right. Additionally, I understood nothing. Who are you? I looked back at him as I questioned. I suddenly turned my head away. However, I became aware of something. Activity behind Moreau's. It was indeed a monster, scuttling across the ceiling in our direction. Its pale skin was tautly stretched over its slender bones. Giving its body a somewhat human appearance, through the skin we could see its veins, which were filled with the same black fluid we had seen previously. It was hairless, just holes where its ears and nose should have been. Its bloodshot eyes were frozen in a lifeless look. It had evaded us before, but our disagreement made it return. It was now too late to turn back. My gaze was caught by Moreau's, but he wasn't quick enough. As the beast charged at him, he spun around to shoot, but the shot went wide, and the monster threw him to the ground in such a small area. The shot was deafening. My eyes were partially dazzled by the muzzle flash, and all I could hear was ringing in my ears. I turned to escape in my bewilderment, not realizing I was still attached to Moreau's. The line jammed just as I was reeling it all the way out, putting me in midair and knocking me to the ground. The thing turned to face me as I turned to look behind me. Moreau's was on the ground, resting there by pulling on the tether. I must have taken it from him, and now it would come to ensure that it doesn't happen again. When I eventually got the tether disconnected, I hurled the worthless gun at the monster, striking it in the head. For a moment it staggered, and I bolted to the first spot that immediately occurred to me. I shut the door to the enormous chemical lab and locked myself in a storage room next to it with a shelf. The monster attempted to enter for a minute before giving up and walking away, perhaps to eliminate Moreau's. I remained there, idling in the corner because I was too afraid to move. It was becoming difficult to breathe, and I couldn't even tell how much time had gone. I briefly considered staying there and quietly ending everything rather than meeting a violent end, which was probably waiting for me on the other side of the door. Subsequently, I heard someone shout my name. Alex's voice. "That's you, Alex?" I gave a call back. "Oh, I'm so grateful. I believed I would pass away here. You made a return," he replied. I turned to open the door, but then I thought better of it. "How did you discover me?" I inquired. "When I heard gunfire. I came here to investigate, even though I was still hiding." "Please go, Dmitri. We need to get out of here." Once again, I took a seat. Perhaps it was him, but supposing it wasn't. I was unwilling to learn. "Nope." He declared your death. Blood was also visible to me. "No. You are not the cause of it. It's not possible." "What? I'm not, Dmitri. What topic are you discussing?" "I was very about killed by one of those creatures, yet I'm here. Just please, Dmitri, come outside and let's go," he implored. I have made up my mind. No way would I open the door, but after hearing what he stated, I decided to alter my mind once again. "Remember the cherry tree, Dmitri? I anticipated your return. This enormous cherry tree was where we used to play when we were little. We used to climb it all the time, but I decided to place a wager one day. Whoever scores the highest prevails." I nearly made it to the top before realizing how foolish this was. I knew the limbs underneath me would snap under my weight at any moment because they were extremely thin. However, Alex wanted to win. He attempted to ascend higher than I did. Then the branch he was standing on snapped, causing him to tumble. He was lucky to simply break his leg when he fell into a pile of falling leaves. If he had hit solid ground, he may have killed himself. It was also my fault. Due to a foolish wager, I almost killed him because we were both worried about going into problems. We made the decision to keep the incident a secret, however. I lived the rest of my life feeling bad about it. He could not have learned about the cherry tree from anybody else. When I opened the door, he was there. He had several scratches and bruises. which made him seem awful, and a ripped, bloody piece of cloth was wrapped around his left hand. "How are you doing?" I inquired. "I've improved," he said. "Let's